Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya, and after that informative piece with Victor Olo on Siaya County, we also need to get a little bit more informative when it comes to matters competency-based. Indeed, the schools are closing, but we also have the national examination and assessment as well. And to help me drive this conversation, I am joined by a tag team of two formidable and informed members from the Kenya National Examination Council. Let me start with the lady on my extreme right. We have Ann Ngatia. Madam Ann Ngatia is a subject specialist, and also she is the coordinator of competency-based assessment, CBA, at the Kenya National Examination Council. And we also have on my immediate right, we have George Gathungu, who is a subject specialist in charge of special education at the Kenya National Examination Council. Ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Yes, but we have a very busy calendar, if you ask me, when it comes to matters examinations in the country. The KCSE is currently underway. We also expect KCPE is also on the way, and we also have the assessments for our kids who are on the competency-based. Indeed, competency-based, the CBC has been criticized, as also has been lauded by some quarters. Let's first understand more. Madam Ann, kindly explain to us the structure of the CBC.
Thank you, viewers. When we talk about competency-based assessment, we really are talking about a departure from what we have been doing on examinations. And we are actually talking about a process that is aimed at finding out the competences, the abilities, the skills, attitudes, and values that our learners have been able to acquire in the process of learning. And therefore, this is a continuous process that begins at the classroom level and also at the Kenya National Examinations Council, where we also give standardized formative assessments. And going forward, we shall be giving assessments across the basic education curriculum. So in terms of the structure then, we have classroom assessments that begin from grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. At the end of grade 3, then we give a national formative assessment, which is geared to finding out what learners have acquired in one of the critical tiers, which we call early years education. And therefore there, the Kenya National Examinations Council begins to give a national assessment to all the learners at grade 3. Then grade 4, we have the classroom assessments going on that are actually developed, administered by the teacher. And we then have school-based assessments where Kenya National Examinations Council develops uniform tools for all learners and are uploaded on our portal for the schools to access, download, and administer them in the most natural environment that the schools can. Going forward, grade 5, the same. And grade 6, the same. At grade 6 is another critical tier, which is the end of primary school. And therefore, at that particular moment, then another summative assessment to cap up the primary school education will be administered, which will be at the end of this year in December. Classroom assessments and school-based assessments will continue for grade 7, 8, and 9. At grade 9, another critical stage where learners will be transiting from junior secondary to senior secondary. And therefore, at that particular point, Kenya National Examinations Council will also be able to give another national formative assessment that will inform learners' choice in the career pathways when they join senior school.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll be finishing on that. But before then, Mr. George, we know indeed we also have to cater for students with special needs. How is the CBC, and especially the assessments that are being done this year round, going to cater for these special needs cases?
Thank you so much. Regarding learners with special needs, CBC has two approaches. And the first approach is where we are saying that all the learners should be given an opportunity to follow what we are calling the regular pathway or the age-based pathway, whereby we, as much as possible, try to adapt the assessment tools, that is the questions and the tasks, to suit those learners. And we modify them in such a way that if a learner is blind and they cannot access the print copy, then the work will be presented in Braille. Likewise, if a learner is deaf and they cannot access that work, then they are presented in sign language that they can understand. We have other type of learners who may not cope with that regular curriculum due to the complexity and maybe severity of their disability. And therefore, CBC has come in handy to come up with a separate curriculum, totally separate curriculum, what we call specialized curriculum, which will require them to perform practical tasks instead of reading, instead of answering the way the regular candidates are doing. And therefore, they'll be given performance tasks, and teachers will be able to mark those tasks or assess those tasks in real time. So the teachers will use observation methods, checklist, among other tools to assess such learners. And therefore, there's a very distinct pathway, separate curriculum for learners with special needs at the CBC.
And still on the same, before I go to Madam Anne, how different is it from the previous system of the 844? How different is it, and how much more will it be able to help learners as opposed to the other system?
Okay, this is a complete overhaul, if I may say so, because in the current system, the 844 system, what we've been doing is we are stopping adaptation, meaning there is a category of learners with severe conditions who are not catered for. We have got our learners with mental handicapping conditions, the intellectual disabilities, those who are autistic, who are not really catered for in terms of assessment in the current curriculum. And simply why we are doing that is because assessments are derived from a curriculum that is developed by KICD. And therefore, if there is no existing curriculum, then it means we cannot come up with a separate assessment. And therefore, what we used to have is adapted. Okay, like for example, the curriculum for mathematics will be developed, and then some areas will be looked at where maybe some learners with physical disabilities may not attempt. And therefore, those areas will be adapted. And by adapting, we mean we modify it. We try to modify it if there is a question that requires construction that is so precise, that is so accurate, then we try to modify that question. But as much as possible, we assess the same skill or similar skill. But what we are talking about CBC is a complete overhaul, whereby we have come up with a curriculum for them, and therefore this enables us also to come up with assessment for those learners with, especially those with severe conditions who have never been assessed before in this country.
Yeah, Madam Anne, apologies, I had to interject. A while back, you were explaining something on the structure. You were, I think, in a grade 9?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you take
then
over?
When the learners join senior school, which begins from grade 10, 11 and 12, again, as Kenya National Examinations Council, we are imploring on the teachers to continue with classroom assessment that happens every day, and then we'll be able to give school-based assessments, which we shall upload on our portal at grade 10, at grade 11, and also at grade 12. At grade 12, this marks the end of basic education, and at this particular point then, a national examination will be administered at that particular point at the end of grade 12. And this national examination, note that I am now talking about an examination because the examination here will be used for certification. There will be grading because these results and the outcomes will be used to place learners into the next level, which can be the world of work, depending on the pathway that they picked at senior school, also tertiary education, and also university education. Yes. And
this assessment, how will we assess our grade 6 student this year round?
Okay, this year round, at grade 6, we are going to give them a formative assessment, which we are referring to as school-based assessment. in their second term, and then in their third term, we shall be able to give a summative assessment. The formative assessment will be in form of practicals, project, and even some written tests, which are a bit different from what we have been used to, because it is going to be a written test that actually really tries to make sure that the learners are being tested on application of knowledge, skills, values, and attitude. The grade 6 summative assessment will be in form of 5 papers, which we have English, mathematics, Kiswahili, and those who are deaf will take the Kenya Sign Language. We shall have a general paper or a consolidated paper, which we are calling integrated science, that combines science and technology, physical education, agriculture, and home science. And the 5th paper will be what we are calling creative arts and social studies. This paper combines social studies, it combines music, art, and religious education. And the summative assessment will be in form of multiple choice questions for the 5 papers. Yes.
And Bona George,
yes,
how will the special needs education students be assessed this time around?
Okay, as I had indicated, maybe I also need to explain the structure of the special needs pathway,
yes,
at a curriculum-based assessment, whereby in the regular curriculum, we have learners joining school at a certain age, that is age 6 for grade 1. But for special needs, the curriculum is structured in levels rather than the age-based levels. So it is level-based. And therefore, we have got 4 levels. The basic level is the foundation level. This level is aimed at equipping the learners with communication skills and hygiene. And after foundation level, then these learners are supposed to transit to intermediate level. Let me point out that foundation level is not a prerequisite for one to join intermediate level, because there are some learners out there who will join the formal education having acquired the communication and hygiene skills, and therefore they don't have to start from the foundation level. So a learner with special needs at the CBC can either join at foundation level or at the intermediate level. Then from intermediate level, they will now be introduced to basic, very basic academic skills, like counting numbers up to 20, not more than 20, very basic language skills. And remember, here we are not talking about language like Kiswahili or English. We are talking about the language that the learner can understand. If it's fidgeting, because the curriculum combines all categories of learners, severe cerebral palsy, those who are severely bright, multiple disabilities, that's having more than one disability. And therefore, here when we talk about communication of the language, we are not talking about expressive language or English. No. We are talking about the language that the learner uses and which they can be understood by the people, the caregivers who are living with them. So from intermediate level, then these learners will proceed to pre-vocational level. At pre-vocational level, the learners will be introduced to skills that can later enable them to join the career of their choice. And therefore, after that pre-vocational, then they will go to the final level, which is the vocational level, and from vocational level, then they will join the world of work. So the way assessment has been structured for all these levels is that, as I indicated earlier, it is performance-based. The learner will be presented with a task where they will be required to do something practically, not to answer theoretically, but to do something practically, and that's why we are calling them performance-based tasks, and they will be assessed based on how they are performing on real time. Yeah. And
Madam Anne, a lot of parents have also raised concerns that they still haven't gotten the gist of the whole system, and now we are assessing our kids. Any concerns that they should have as well?
Okay, thank you. I think to our parents and our viewers, I think all we need to know is that we need to be involved much more in our children's learning. We need to get engaged a lot with the teachers, and the schools also will be required to give a lot of information to the parents to assure them that this is a good system, to assure them that even as much as they see that there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of homework being given or what is being called extended activities, this is just to make sure that as a parent, you are able to follow up, you are able to give emotional support, you are able to give social support to that particular learner. It is a good system because we are saying that what the child learns in school should be extended beyond the classroom. And therefore, when a child is told that go and clean the utensils, they have been trained in hygiene and nutrition or even in home science, how to do that. They are told to extend that particular experience outside. They have been told about the environment. They are also told to go and extend that in their homes, in the society. And therefore, I think the concerns probably is just a paradigm shift where we need to move away from where most of the work was done at the school, but now we are required as a society, as parents, as guardians, to be able to be involved much more in the learner's education. Yes.
And George, you did talk about now assessing the curriculum for the special needs kids is more or less a complete overhaul. What are some of the challenges of overhauling such a system, bearing in mind these kids have special needs? Just as you said, some even have multiple disabilities.
Okay, thank you so much. One of the key issues I think that need to be addressed, not just for special needs, I think it's the issue of attitude. Because there is a way we have been used to doing things, and here comes a change that demands that we do things in a different way. And remember, we are not just concentrating on the academic achievement of the learner, but the issues of values, the issues of core competencies that will make this learner responsible and independent. And therefore, there are the traditional things that we normally talk about, the issues of we need teachers to be retooled. We need more teachers in special schools this time around because there's more work. We also require resources. We need the schools to be equipped with resources, especially the special schools. And we also need the parents to take up their role. And where we have some children without parents or boarding schools, then we are saying the teachers and the caregivers will now take up the role of parents to give guidance to these learners and give them a lot of hope and work with them. So number one to me is the issue of attitudinal change, that we now have to realize we are in a new era, we are in a new dispensation, and therefore we need to do things in a different way.
Anne,
yes.
Looking at a council, there are a myriad of challenges facing some of the students who will be sitting for their examinations and as well as their assessment. The country has a lot of counties that have been hit by drought, insecurities. What are some of these challenges? How are we going to sort out some of these challenges to ensure that the child who gets the assessment or the examinations in Nairobi will be the same conditions as a student or a pupil who takes an assessment or an examination in Baringo?
Okay, thank you. One of the ways that the government administers examination is by embracing a multi-agency approach where we have interministerial support. For example, the Ministry of Interior is very much involved to be able to make sure that there is security in all the examination centers and that our learners and our candidates will be secure during the examinations. Where it comes to making sure that the assessments are fair, as a council, what we normally do is that noting that one of our principles of assessment is fairness and equity, then we ensure that the kind of task that we are asking a learner to do is a task that can be done by any learner. If we are asking them for materials, we ensure that we are looking for materials that can be locally available, for example, for the practical, for those performance tasks that we are giving, to make sure that no learner is disadvantaged. And one of the areas that we are really emphasizing is improvisation, is use of locally available materials, and so that every learner is able to access. And another way that we are also making sure that there is fairness is that giving an open, especially in the assessments, we are giving open questions where you formulate a question, but a learner is able to perform or undertake that particular assessment depending on the environment in which they are. So if we are not talking about sources of water, then we'll be asking the learners the sources of water that are available in their community. In that way, then we don't restrict them that they must go out and look for something that is not available in their environment. Yes.
Yes. That's quite interesting. But George, looking at this system, the CBC system, when it began, there were a lot of queries, others talking about the teachers, have they been well trained? What was the situation when it comes to special needs?
Okay, thank you so much. You know, teaching is a profession, just like you go for driving. And when you went to the driving school, if you are trained with a Toyota model, then it doesn't mean that when you buy a Datsun, you have to go back to, or a Nissan, you have to go back to college again and be retrained. Or what you are saying is continuously, not just in teaching or in education, all over. There are changes, and there is a modern life where you're embracing technology, where you're embracing new changes that are coming in. And therefore, when it comes to teaching, the teachers really do not require retraining because they have the methodology. All what they need to do is to update to fit in the current situation. And therefore, what the government is doing is that we are retouring. We are saying we are retouring teachers. We meet teachers during school holidays. And these trainings are organized by the Teacher Service Commission. NEC is a prayer, as Anne indicated, is that we are embracing the multi-agency, whereby we have officers from Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, Kenya National Examinations Council, Teacher Service Commission, same as TEA, all those involved in education, going out to meet these teachers and try to address these issues. As far as special needs education is concerned, we have been having parallel training. Parallel training, we mean whenever the teachers who are handling the regular learners are being trained, within the same venue or within the same vicinity, we organize a training for teachers with, who are handling learners with special needs. And therefore, they have been incorporated, they have not been left behind. And this is something that's continuing. And we're ensuring that we get a lot of feedback from them, what they would like addressed. And we also, together, use what we call a cascade method, whereby once we train a few teachers, then they're expected to go and train others. And of course, there is an organization that is led by what we call the CSOs, or the CSOs and champion teachers. And therefore, we reach each and every part of the country. Yeah.
Madam Anne, looking at the pastoralist communities, they move from one place to another, and this is not the best time to move, and especially when we have assessments. We have how we can accommodate them as well.
Yes, when we talk about formative assessments, one of the things that we may need to note is that these assessments are flexible. They are not cast on stone in a specific time like an examination. And therefore, when we give these formative assessments, we allow the schools, for the project, we allow them 2 months. For the written test, we allow them at least 2 to 3 weeks, so that the school is able to organize. If they are not able to sit that assessment in the first week, they are still able to sit that assessment in the second week. And therefore, I think that in a way would be able to accommodate those that are moving probably from one place to the other. And also the other thing is that Kenya National Examinations Council is issuing a unique assessment number. That assessment number goes with that child, even if they move from one school to the other. And we are still able to track their progress, even when they transfer from one school to the other. We are still able to get their score, and therefore they should not worry that probably they did not sit in the school where they had actually learned. But even when they move on, they still are able to access. And the other thing is that the assessments are actually flexible because they are uploaded on our portal, and the schools can the schools can access them at their own time, as long as they are within that 2 months period. And I think that would be a good way of trying to cater for learners who might have challenges in 1 week, in another week. They still are able to catch up and conduct the assessments.
Yes, indeed. I remember the old system, the 844. We were to pay a certain fee for the examination. How different is it with the new assessment? I think, Madam Anne, you can start with that. George can
I think what we may need to realize is that in primary school, the government has been paying the examination fees for our learners. And even now we have made it easier, because all we are saying is that once we upload these assessment items on our portal, then the schools can access that. And one of the ways that we are encouraging the schools to access that so that they can reduce in terms of cost is to download them onto the tablets. Each of the primary schools was given one projector and 2 laptops and tablets depending on the number of learners that were there at that particular point. And therefore, the schools should be able now to download those assessments and load them onto the tablets so that there is no printing that takes place, and the learner can actually refer to the tablet and answer on their exercise books or even on a foolscap. So that reduces cost. Where probably the tablets are not enough, and we find that most of the tasks that we are giving are practical in nature, the teacher could also use the chalkboard just to write that. Again, they can also project using the projectors just to try and reduce on cost. But we are saying that we are not saying the schools should not print, but there is a way of trying to reduce these costs. But the government has taken care of, through the capitation, through the capitation grant, has taken care of the exam fee, the assessment fee.
George, you can jump in on that, because I'm quite sure with the new system comes new things and new infrastructure. How is it when it comes to the national assessment?
Okay, thank you so much. I think for special needs education, it's even much cheaper. Because whereas even if schools were to print for the regular candidates, for the case of special needs, each learner do not require a copy, an individual copy, because these are people who may not read on their own, and the nature of their tasks does not require them to write a lot. So what is required here is a teacher to just have a copy. So this copy may be soft copy or maybe hard copy. And since they are uploaded in the school portal and schools can access them, then it means the teacher may use the tablet or even the laptop, as Anne has explained, to access that material and to administer. Because for special needs, the assessment is individualized. Individualized meaning you are assessing one learner at a time. You are not giving to a mass of students, because even their instructions are individualized. We employ what we call the individualized educational program. And therefore, the teacher would just require one copy, and with that copy, they can move, assessing their learners one at a time. And therefore, I would say for those who are following the stage-based pathway, then it's even much cheaper than even the regular ones.
And distribution of textbook, I do remember the minister saying that we are indeed in control when it comes to the distribution of set books, Madam Anne. And of course, we need each and every candidate to feel equally catered for by the government. How has it been?
Yes, true that the Ministry of Education has been supplying textbooks. And now it is at a ratio of 1:1 that each learner in the public schools is able to access a textbook. And this is usually done through Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. They facilitate the distribution of books within the country. There is a structured mechanism of how that is distributed all the way to the sub-counties. And the sub-counties also make sure that they deliver the textbooks to the schools. So I can say that with surety that the government has done a lot in terms of ensuring that our learners have textbooks and other support materials.
Do you have enough invigilators and observers when it comes to the examinations? Because it's starting in next week.
Okay. Well, yes, we may say yes, because statements have already been given by the Cabinet Secretary about the preparedness of the exams.
Okay, that's also in the preparedness as well.
Yeah, so they are there, so, yes. And I think that has been catered for.
Okay, Madam Anne, this is something that I remember somebody asked me the same question yesterday. I remember it's politics, yes. They talked about some factions or some section have talked about we don't like this education system, and when we come in, we are going to change it. How strong is an education system when it comes to matters politics? Because if at all they are going to seize power, then they're talking about we don't need this education system. And of course it will be a quite something, because parents have already started sinking their teeth into the CBC.
Okay, I think what we need to know is that an education system is there to serve the needs of the citizens. And we need to understand we are in the 21st century. And therefore, our learners in our schools now need to acquire the 21st century skills. A lot of benchmarking with international practice, what other countries have been doing within the region in Africa and out of Africa, actually shows that we need to move ahead and embrace the 21st century skills so that these learners are able to think critically, these learners are able to solve problems that are facing the country, and so that our learners are not limited only to Kenya, but they will be globally competitive. And even according to UNESCO, it recommends that a curriculum, or what we used to call the syllabus, should be changed every 5 years. But that does not happen because of the rigors of coming up with a new curriculum and also the expenses. And therefore, what we need to embrace is what are the benefits of where we are moving from. We are moving from a curriculum which is now learner-centered, that the learner is in charge of their own learning. Unlike in the past, where the learner was supposed to just receive information from the teacher, and now the teacher becomes a facilitator. We are talking about embracing issues of pertinent and contemporary issues. We are looking at the society. What is it that is ailing us as a society? And that has been put in the curriculum, so that some of these ills, some of these values that we do not have as a country, we are able to acquire those values. We are talking about community service learning, so such that a learner is exposed to community service. At the same time, they'll be learning early in life, so that they are not disengaged. The moment they leave school, they are unable to cope with the society. So this is a curriculum that is trying to bring on board values. It is trying to bring on board the core competences, communication and collaboration, emphasizing digital literacy. And I believe this is where, as a country, we need. So we need to look at what does Vision 2030 say? We need an industrialized nation. What are the 4 pillars of this government? The socio-economic pillar. What is it that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 recommended? That each learner requires to have access to education, and not only access, but also equity in terms of education. And when we look at the competency-based curriculum, where the mission is to nurture every learner's potential, it then aligns itself very well with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, because every learner has been given a place. Every learner's potential will be nurtured. Unlike in the past where we were moving as a class 8, class 4, class whichever class, but now the teachers are being recommended that let's treat each learner individually. Let us have differentiated kind of learning. Let us have differentiated assessment, so that every learner finds a place and is able to nurture their talent from very early age, and they become somebody useful in the society. Unlike now, where we find that probably because learners were dropping out, because probably they did not pass, we are now seeing that in this curriculum, there's 100% transition. So every learner will be able to transit and finish basic education because of the support that is being given by the government. So we look at the needs of the country first, more than the needs of the individual.
All right.